I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers. And this is This Week
in Recruiting.
It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. Our recruiting analyst, follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at NextLevelD1. And, of course, see his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. And he's back in the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Today, Greg Powers Memorial Power Zone. It's good to have you back, buddy.
Powered by Chicken Express.
Powered by Chicken Express.
Don't forget that part.
Yes.
That part's important.
That's probably...
That's the most important part, if we're being honest.
I was going to say, as a chicken aficionado, how could I forget?
Also a sweet tea aficionado myself. I really feel like that's what I run on these days is Chicken Express sweet tea. It's pumping through my veins.
Okay.
Rolls.
I just have to be quiet because I've said on the show I'm not a sweet tea guy. I'm sure that the Chicken
Yeah.
Express sweet tea is wonderful.
I don't understand how you can be the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and not like sweet tea. There's a disconnect in my brain there.
I don't want to get into an argument about what I need to and don't need to like to have this job. Pickle.
Oh, okay.
So you like?
Well, whenever you're ready to dive into that argument, let's go.
Well, it's a long.
So you run on coffee and what? Like?
I run on coffee. I run on
whiskey.
Yeah, brown liquor. Things like that. It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. Got a lot to get to in the recruiting world today. Let's start with our prospect on the rise. Let's go to Richland, kind of Fort Worth way. Let's talk about their 2022 wide receiver C.J. Nelson, who picked up a big offer this week, local offer. TCU swooped in and gave him his first in-state Power 5 offer. He did have offers from places like Kansas, SMU, and Houston, but for a guy who I think is a pretty speedy kid, getting that offer from basically down the street in Frog Country is probably going to be a big move for them.
And TCU was busy this week extending some offers, out to the 2022 class. Richland is one of these programs that has some nice prospects now year in and year out, and C.J. Nelson is going to continue that trend. 6 foot, 175. He's described as a twitchy slot wide receiver with great top-end speed, and I think that description really fits the bill whenever you watch his highlight tape. Got some good options right now on the table. I think that's a handful of offers you rattled off whenever we were talking about that. So he's probably going to double that before, maybe even triple it before he makes a final decision. And that Richland wide receiver core heading into 2021 is pretty exciting because they also have Ashton Kozart, who picked up an offer from Miami this week. So that gives them a formidable 1-2 punch there at receiver and some guys to really keep an eye on next year. I think that team is going to be one that didn't have the type of year that they had in recent years in 2020, but they're going to probably be back in 2021.
Well, and that's one of the things is when you watch this, when you watch his highlights, this is a guy who projects at the slot at the next level, but because of his athleticism, Richland has the ability to move him all around. They can move him. I know that he's been real versatile. They'll hand it to him on a not on wildcat, but on end arounds and things like that. They just want to get the ball in his hands. But at the next level, you figure he's probably lining up as a what would that be, a wide receiver?
Yeah, I call them like slot backs, or I hate categorizing these guys as slot receivers, because he's probably a guy who can move around, like you said. Slot is probably his position where he can create the most mismatches, but he's not a guy who can't play outside. So I think it's not fair to strictly call all these guys all the time slots.
Yeah, most certainly. He's a guy certainly to keep an eye on. Richland 2022 wide receiver C.J. Nelson. Let's go to our commit of the week. Our commit of the week, we're going down to the Houston area, Conroe Oak Ridge, to the class of 2021, to running back Alton McCaskill, who has pulled the trigger. And this is a guy who had offers from places like Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, a whole bunch of them. This is the number 61 prospect in the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Hot 100. He's our number 7 running back in the state. You want to talk about a much-needed win for Dana Holgerson. He commits to the Cougs there at Houston, and that feels like a really, really important get for Dana Holgerson.
It does, and just to rewind the clock a little bit, a few weeks ago we were talking here on National Signing Day or the week after National Signing Days. We recapped some things, and the grade that we gave out is we didn't say, hey, Houston had an F. We said disappointing recruiting class in the early signing period is probably Houston, and I thought at that time it was an easy call. Now they add Alton McCaskill to Maddox Kopp on the offensive side of the football, giving them a top-tier guy at quarterback, a top-tier guy at running back. They're starting to look into some more avenues as well into this recruiting class now that they have room to add. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for Houston between now and the final national signing day on February 3rd. But in regards specifically just to McCaskill, he's a big-bodied running back who has the frame to add and hold mass, and he's an explosive ball carrier as well, at around 6 foot, 6'1". He's long and lean and chiseled, but has that top-end speed to be a home run type of hitter, and I think Houston fans will like the fact that he catches the ball well out of the backfield and can be a well-rounded weapon.
Let's put it this way. There ain't no questions about the eyeball test with him.
Right.
This is a guy who looks like a running back. He plays like a running back. He makes all the plays that you want there at the position. I mean, this is a guy who, watching his film and then seeing him up close, you're like, oh, okay, I can get on board with this.
And he's the highest-rated commit in the class now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the top guy.
This is a big get here for the Houston Cougars. We're talking This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers and Next Level Athlete here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation at #TF Today. Let's go to our underclassmen of the week. Our underclassmen of the week, and this will tie in nicely to another conversation we'd like to have, is Lewisville 2022 wide receiver Armani Winfield. Just finished up his junior season there for the Fightin' Farmers, and he has committed to Texas. That is notable because he is the first commitment in the Steve Sarkisian era there for the University of Texas. This is a guy who is a DCTF 4-star, a guy that we have pretty high opinion of around here. And if you are Steve Sarkisian and you want to give your recruiting class a jolt right out of the gate, you can do a whole lot worse than Armani Winfield.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be one of those guys who's in the conversation to be the top wide receiver in the state. The thing that I love about Armani Winfield is this is a kid who started as a freshman at Lewisville. And, I know a lot of people that listen to this may or may not be huge Texas high school football fans, but the district that Lewisville plays in is one of the most ferocious or toughest. That's how it's like a blue-collar, hard-hitting district, and Armani Winfield came in and made an impact right away. As a matter of fact, I think his emergence there helped change Lewisville's always good, right? They're always pretty good, but they really bounced back his freshman season to be like a team to take into account every week for some of these what we consider top 6A teams in the DFW area. And that's kind of what he brings to the tables. He's 6'1", 180 pounds, but he plays like he's 6'4". He can go up and high point the football. He has long arms and a great catch radius, and he's a great route runner. So I would describe him as an elite possession style receiver with electrifying playmaking ability also in his skill set.
Now, one thing I do want to, and not to get too far into the nitty-gritty of this, but obviously Steve Sarkisian's arrival in Texas has a lot of questions about what the team is going to look like, what their recruiting system, what the staff is going to look like. I have heard it posited that this is a big win for Andre Coleman, the wide receivers coach at Texas, who has been retained by Steve Sarkisian. Is this what you're hearing as well?
Yeah, and Armani Winfield made a commitment during halftime of the national championship game as he watched Alabama's wide receivers run up and down the field on Ohio State, which was the team that many people had predicted that Armani Winfield was going to commit to. So this was like a double knife in the back at Ohio State, who's been coming into Texas and dominating for top-tier guys. I mean, Armani Winfield told me personally that Ohio State was his favorite team growing up, and now he sees enough out of Texas to pull the trigger on a commitment, and the hope of what he can do in the Steve Sarkisian offense underneath the guidance of Andre Coleman as the wide receiver coach. So, I mean, huge step in the right direction. If you're a Texas fan, you're a recruiting fan, listening to this, I think that you have to be really excited, especially if you can start to secure these types of offensive talents, because we know the Big 12 is a league that you have to score points in if you're going to win the championship there.
And finally, let's round it out with our recruits of the week. Our recruits of the week, plural. Let's talk title games. There are 4 state championship games this weekend, 5A and 6A state championship games there at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. I know you are going to have a close eye on a number of the big-time playmakers. I think it's easy to focus on quarterbacks here. And I want to start with this. Let's focus on the 6A games. I want to start with the 6A Division II title game. One guy we talk a lot about, Kaidon Salter, the Tennessee signee, who's a guy who's unbelievable, needs no introduction at this point. The guy on the other side, his counterpart in this game, Caleb Koger, the sophomore quarterback there from Katy, has really stepped into the role and I think really grown up. He looks the part of, I know that they don't ask him to do as much as Cedar Hill asks Caden Salter to do, but I'm interested in your take on both those quarterbacks that we'll see in the 6A Division II title game.
Well, I love what we've seen out of Caden Salter specifically as he's grown up kind of before our eyes in that Cedar Hill offense. The first game he played was against Allen when he played his first game at Cedar Hill, and I think, what was that now? Was that 3 years? Was that last season or was it 2? I can't remember. Anyway, the first game was Allen, and that game you could see him making adjustments and learning how to be a 6A quarterback after transferring into Cedar Hill from Bishop Lynch. And what he is now is someone who is completely different. As he's led his team to the state championship game, he's grown up there not only from a leadership standpoint, but you can see that he oozes the confidence that he needs to be successful, to take these steps. And on the other side of the football, Koger's a guy who, when you think of Katy, you think, wow, they're going to ground and pound you, right? That's not necessarily what they've been this year. They've been a team that can move the football down the field with Koger leading that offense, and they have a great weapon at wide receiver in Nicholas Anderson, the brother of former running back Rodney Anderson, who is a vertical threat at all times and gives him a weapon to look to when things get hairy. So I think that this is going to be a very exciting game as these two offenses kind of slug it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Play action is such a huge part of what Katy does, and you need that guy in Koger who can give them that viable threat through the air. And then the nightcap on Saturday, Southlake, Carroll, and Austin, Westlake. And I've made this point before. A lot of focus is on the coaches. Let's talk about these quarterbacks because it has been a long, long time since we've had arguably the top 2 quarterbacks in their class going at it in a state championship game, but that's what you have here with Southlake Carroll quarterback Quinn Ewers. We've talked a lot about him, the Ohio State commit. And then Cade Klubnik, the quarterback for Austin Westlake, who I know you think really highly of as well.
Well, Klubnik could be right behind Ewers on that rankings list by the time the dust settles. I think that you have a 2-man race right now behind Ewers. Ewers is the clear-cut number 1 guy. He's already a DCTF 5-star, rated as the number 1 prospect in the state. Some services have him as the number 1 player in the nation. He's committed to Ohio State already, and he's led his team to some big wins, upset wins, heading into the state championship game. And Klubnik is the type of guy who is just a savvy leader who has a big-time arm. As he adds some more weight to his frame, it's going to be even more apparent how big his arm is, but he has an extremely quick release and can fit the ball into tight windows. His arm really impressed me in person when he came to the next level camp back in 1 year ago. So he's even more mature now, and he already had a huge arm then. But this game, this game has everything that you're looking for in a state championship. All the storylines. We were probably like, if we get North Shore versus Duncanville round 3, right? That's going to be a great game. But now you have Dodge versus Dodge. You have the top 2 quarterbacks in the state in one class facing off against each other. You have a vaunted Austin Westlake defense going to try to, stymie a great Southlake Carroll offense. And, hey, guess what? The Dragons always have a pretty good defense as well. So, it's not going to be like you're throwing some scrubs out on the defensive side of the ball there. This is going to be I think this is going to be a great game. This is one I'm really excited about, and it's a game like I would say it's an abnormal game, one that we're not used to in the state title game. But if you love quarterbacks, Saturday's your day because every game on Saturday is going to have a great quarterback really on either side of the football. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I would say everywhere you look, one of the things that I'm impressed by all 4 of these state championship games is their star power for all 8 of these teams. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're talking about guys. You've got FBS commits on all 8 of these teams. So if you're a prospect hound, you should certainly, if you have the means to get to AT&T Stadium, then do so. Otherwise, watch it on Fox Sports Southwest. He's Greg Powers. He's our recruiting analyst from Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at NextLevelD1. Powers, we will do this again next week.
Let's do it then.